Welcome to a damn great episode of ARG Presents. Get it? I'm Amigo Aaron, joined by a man who took the fruit of knowledge and threw it in the garbage, the BRENT.
I don't throw food away.
Oh, well, that's a good point. Well, there's got to be some explanation for your idiocy. So, if you joined us last week,
I would say genetics.
Yeah, whatever. I spun the wheel legitimately, and I made a legitimate deal. Don't believe the haters. There was no collusion. There was no screw-up. That was a legitimate spin. And this week, legitimately, we'll be looking at the COLECO ADAM computer system. Brent,
yes.
What do you know about the COLECO ADAM?
Oh, nothing.
You know, I've got one of these, but it was so vast in its size that I couldn't fit it on this table. We're just going to talk about it today because the COLECO ADAM is a fascinating study in what happens to a company when they overextend.
Yes.
And that's what happened. So, the COLECO ADAM launched in 1983. All right, now, you, of course, have heard of the COLECO.
Oh,
the ColecoVision
excellent
game
system.
console. Tremendous system.
Yes.
Had the tremendous pack-in of Donkey Kong.
Yes.
And it was Atari's top rival back in the day.
Horrible gamepads.
Well, listen, they saw what Intellivision had. They saw what Atari had. It's like, let's smush them. And
yeah,
they did.
And that was a bad idea.
They're okay. They're not the best. They're renowned as being horrible. So, the COLECO ADAM was COLECO's effort to walk into the realm of the computer,
yes,
as Atari had done. And
now that much I knew,
and as Intellivision had attempted to do with and this has a lot to do. This has some things in common with Intellivision's efforts in the computer world, because this was the craze at the time. We're going to turn these consoles into computers. The ADAM had really two lives. We're going to basically focus on the actual computer itself. But this was also issued as an expansion pack 3, I believe it was, for the COLECO, that you literally plug your COLECO into the ADAM computer to make it one big thing. The COLECO was compatible with the ADAM, the ColecoVision, and so you've got your the pads are pretty much identical, and they had a lot in common. But the ADAM added some extra to the project. It ran on a Z80A 3.58 megahertz CPU, Brent, which not
I mean, back in the day.
Now, when this bad boy debuted, it would run you $725 US bucks.
Woo.
In today's money, well, you got to think this is the age of computers, and computers weren't cheap, brother.
That's true, but that's a lot.
In today's money, you're talking 1,823 buckery dues. So it's
for what you got. That's a lot.
It's a few dollars. It's a few dollars. So I've got here a list. I'm going to start off with this just so you can understand the ADAM and its effect.
Okay.
This is a list of ADAM exclusive ROMs that ROM cartridges released. Now, these are ROM cartridges, just like a COLECO cartridge, but these would only work on the ADAM computer.
Right.
I'm looking over the list here. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. About 20 were released.
Yes.
Okay.
And some of them were garbage.
Some were, well, I mean, that's all in your perspective, right? So
my perspective says it's garbage.
COLECO announced the ADAM at the Summer CES in June of '83, and it was predicted that they would sell 500,000 units by Christmas.
That's pretty bold.
It's pretty bold, right? So this actually, when it released, it wasn't too long before it was down to $600, and so they were out of the gate. Well, here's what happened. COLECO couldn't ship that many units. They sold well at Christmas of '83, but they basically sold far, far less than 500, more like 100,000 units, something in that ballpark.
Yeah, 1/5 your prediction is not good.
Yeah. So there was a reason for this, and this would be the Achilles heel of the ADAM. And let's first talk about what the ADAM was. So the ADAM came in basically two parts. You had the ADAM CPU unit,
sure,
and then you had a super fast cassette deck in it. They had their own like super speedy fast tape deck technology. It also had space for another one. You could also even put floppy drives in these things, which they were available.
Yeah.
The other component,
5 1/4 floppies.
That's right.
Yeah.
The other component of this was a printer. Right? It was a old school printer that hooked into the side, corded into the CPU.
Okay.
And the ADAM was a unique computer. When you turn it on, doesn't really boot up. It comes up to basically like a screen with a cursor.
A prompt, yeah.
Right. And then basically, when you type on the keyboard that comes with it, it just prints out what you type on the printer. Sort of like a typewriter.
Typewriter, yeah.
I will say, when I got my Adam, it had been stored in the garage probably for, 83 to 2015 or so. So that's a pretty long, 30 years?
Yeah.
We pulled that sucker out and hooked it up, and the printer still printed. Wow. Impact printer, and it still printed right away. It worked. I mean,
even on the ribbon, huh?
We printed perfectly. I mean, the print was a little dull, but it worked.
That's pretty amazing.
So that's what you get for your money. Now, if you want to do DOS, like a basic or whatever that requires a cartridge, this stuff requires cartridges.
Yeah.
Now, all this sounds well and good, because if you think about it, a printer, a computer that also doubles as a ColecoVision that hooks to your TV. For that amount of money, that's not bad.
The printer did come with the system.
It had to, which I'll explain. So you're thinking to yourself, that sounds like an okay deal in a time where computers would cost thousands and thousands of dollars.
Okay.
That's where the fun ends, unfortunately, for the Adam. Because they had a lot of fallout. And by fallout, I mean a lot of these things were defective.
Oh.
An alarming amount of... So, as I mentioned, they shipped around 95,000 units in December, right? The rumor was basically every 5 or 6 units out of 10 were bad. Think about that.
Oh, my goodness.
Their fallout rate was
over half?
Unbelievable.
Wow.
Now, Coleco confirmed that less than 10% had defects, well below industry standards. No, these were falling out left and right. They had all kinds of trouble. There's the way the ColecoVision Adam was put together may lend you to understand why they failed so often. Just to give you a couple highlights. To use the Coleco Adam computer, you had to have the printer hooked up. The reason is the power flowed through the printer to the computer. You plugged in the printer to the wall, and then power went from the printer into the Coleco Adam.
Was it to make the Adam itself's footprint smaller?
Well, it didn't. The Atom's huge, so that's not what it was. No, that's just the way they did it. So basically,
that's really dumb.
So here are your problems. One, let's say you don't want to print today. You just want to play the Atom. Well, tough. Printer on table. Massive printer. Number two, if the printer broke, no Atom. You're screwed.
Yeah.
Right? In fact, this is one of the main reasons I don't use the Atom that much, because I had to mod it to not have the printer hooked up. And so whenever you want to play with it, you have to drag the printer out. You have to drag the CPU out. You have to hook it all up. Number two, and this is much more devastating one, and believe it or not, the super duper turbo fast tape deck that was in it.
Sure.
Of course, they sold many a commercial tape for this, including my game, among others. And when you loaded this up, you would play it. You turn off your Adam. You're done with it for the day or whatever. When you come back and flip that thing on, it would send out a pulse that would erase any tape that was in the deck. So, and what was printed on most tapes is like insert tape in deck, turn on Adam. No, don't do that. If you haven't clicked on Adam, don't do that, because you will zap that tape. It happens over and over and over.
Wow.
Yeah. This was a massive screw up. That was really, so eventually they started releasing, they put labels on the tape decks that said, do not have a tape in this when you turn it on. You know?
That's horrible.
Yeah, it is.
That is absolutely horrible.
So, we move on to March of 1984, and I love this quote. John J. Anderson quoted, "A trail of broken promises, unfulfilled expectations, and extremely skittish stockholders." He summed up Coleco in those words.
Wow.
So the Coleco Adam limped along. Now let me tell you how cheap these got. Coleco was desperate to unload these things at the end because they were imminent failure. It was killing them. Just supporting them was killing them. And so in '85, they announced they were discontinuing. It was January of '85. So keep in mind, this launched December of '83. Okay, so you basically had '84. That was the years of the Adam. That was the A year. So Coleco revealed it lost $35 million in late '83, the time the Adams lost, $13 million in the first 9 months of '84. And so that they were unloading the hell out of these things at an alarming rate. It is estimated that Coleco sold about 350 Adam computers between the December of '83 and into '84. So that's a decent amount. I mean, the funny thing is these things are out there if you want to look for them, but they had so many failures, and there are I've read tons of stories where people would buy these from the store 4 or 5 times and take them back. They'd keep getting broken.
Wow.
So and the tech support on that thing must have been an absolute disaster, man. So this game shipped with a letter quality printer. It had 80K of memory RAM, and included. And this is a game we've played before. Buck Rogers, Planet of Zoo.
Absolutely, I almost picked that game.
Now you like Buck Rogers
very much, yes.
Yeah. Now to put it in perspective of the time, the PC Junior, which was also a horrible machine,
yes,
it was selling for about $700, but had no peripherals at all, nothing. Now, of course, you had the C64 that was up $200. That was clearly the way to go. But they sold a bunch of Adams because Coleco had a lot of good. People really loved the ColecoVision, and so one would expect that the Adam would have been a pretty neat computer, but it just didn't happen. The funny thing about Coleco, I want to get into this a little bit since it was concerning my game. This is sort of a sidestep. When Dragon's Lair and Space Ace and these Laserdisc games came out, I was a big fan of these things. I mean, I loved them, and so I told myself that if you could ever make a home version of one of these, I was going to buy the hell out of whatever came out first. As a kid, I told myself that.
Okay.
And the Adam actually was the machine that I thought was going to pull it off, because Coleco had announced early on that they were working on some sort of laser peripheral that would play these home games.
Oh gosh, that would have been.
But what they were going to use I think they were called memory wafers. Basically, they were going to use a different sort of technology to port these games to the house. And I mean, I heard this for years, and I read about it in magazines. No one ever talks about this anymore, but there was early on, Laserdisc games were utterly impossible to bring home.
Right.
There was no technology.
The expense was ridiculous. Yeah.
So the thing they were talking about was going to be called. This was sort of their. This was before the Adam. This was going to be their third expansion pack. It was called the Super Game Module. Right now, it's funny because someone has recently released their version of this as a peripheral for the Coleco. I mean, recently that plays games they're more complicated than the Coleco. It's an expansion that you can buy, but this was the old one. So instead of cartridges, this thing was going to use diskette-like Super Game wafers. What they allegedly
sounds delicious.
Yeah. This thing had a lot of buzz, and then they basically didn't say anything about it, and eventually it just went away. And that's pretty much what I remember. It's just like it was just gone. No more Super Game wafers. No more. And so expansion 3 ended up being the Adam expansion, which is the only expansion I don't have for the Coleco. I've got the other two, but of course I've got an Adam, so I never bothered to get it. So, long story short, this pretty much effectively killed Coleco.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
At the end of their run for these things, they were selling these things so cheaply that was unbelievable, and they were even doing stuff like bundling them with Cabbage Patch dolls, which Cabbage Patch was a big Coleco property.
Was it like a toy for your boy, toy for your girl type promotion?
There was like, please buy these Adams.
Oh, okay. It was just desperation. Got it.
I mean, I remember this thing. It was a tumultuous tumble into obscurity. It just went away, and Coleco wasn't around much longer. Yeah. They were gone pretty soon after the Adam. So the Adam effectively killed Coleco, and they were on fire. They were on fire before this. Now, one thing I want to mention that I thought was neat. There's a group of Adam enthusiasts. It's true. And they have had a gathering every year. And I looked. They've never missed a year since 1989.
Wow.
They have a thing called Adam Con. And it's all over the place. It's been in Columbus, in Napa. It's been all over the place. So you're a Coleco Adam enthusiast. And by the way, as I go through the rise and fall of the Adam, I like the Adam. I think there was a lot of potential there. It's got a pretty renowned basic. They've released a lot of interesting peripherals, sort of like the Amigo, where you've got like you can play stuff off of SD. They've got hard drive peripherals for it. There's a homebrew scene. Like I said, they're still releasing stuff for the COLECO edition, so I'm not here to kill the Atom, and I think it's great.
Well, it's that the Atom killed themselves.
Right, but I'm saying there's still something there. I think the Atom was, obviously for the year and a couple months it was around, it was underutilized. But there are people that have taken a liking to it and use it to this day for fun. So if you're into an active homebrew scene with a lot of weird hardware peripherals and stuff, and you want to really go off the beaten track, the COLECO Atom is a good and wise choice.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, the Atom didn't have a ton of special games released for it that only get played. Most of the games released for it would also play in the COLECO.
Yeah. And
if you look at some of the cards, and I've got a few like this, they will say, some of them say like for use with COLECO Atom and COLECO Vision. So, but there were some, like I said, around 20 that were just exclusively for the Atom. So we decided to take a look at a couple exclusive Atom games.
No.
Well, ish.
Yes.
And Brent will explain more on his later. So I went ahead and picked. I looked over a bunch of this list. And there was some stuff also released on tape I could have chosen.
Yes.
But this game, as I mentioned, the COLECO had toyed with the prospect of having this laser wafer unit to play laser games. And as a kid, I was really obsessed with this. And so, just a few years ago, I found that they'd released this game for the Atom, and I thought to myself, that's remarkable. I never heard of this. And so, now when I had the chance, I had to at least give it a shot, because I had not played it before. And so, the first game I'm going to look at this week is going to be Dragon's Lair.
Yes. Yeah, coming right off the Laserdisc episode.
That's right. Well, I had to because I just think it flows right into it. So let's talk Dragon's Lair again. This was released on the Atom. Now this was released on every machine on Earth. Okay, let's get that straight. But this particular version is unusual, an unusual version of the game. This came out. I couldn't believe this is December of December of '94. Yeah, December of 1984. So this was released right before they killed this machine dead as Julius Caesar, which is kind of sad, really. So what do you got here? Well, this is not a Dragon's Lair that you would normally have seen. There's no lasers. There's no animation. But what you do have is a pretty well illustrated, decently graphic game that tries to recreate the Dragon's Lair experience in a non Laserdisc way. Now, there have been a few attempts at this. I believe that I guess it's the Super Nintendo that has the real super duper hard version.
The Nintendo
NES.
And it was not. It was not based off of. I mean, the main character Dirk and Singe and everything, but the game itself had nothing like the arcade.
Right. Now
this does.
Now, if you grew up like we did, eventually the PC got Dragon's Lair, and there were versions that came out hither and yon. But this Atom version is the first. This is the first home computer version, a port of Dragon's Lair ever released. What do you think about that? It's kind of neat. So, again, you do not get the luxury of the Laserdisc cartoons, but they do a decent job of giving you some of the levels. So, you've got the first. I'm going to just go through these because there's not a ton of them. You'll recall that the plot's the same. You're rescuing Daphne from Singe, the dragon. All right. The first level of this is the falling disc level. Now, in the arcade, you'll recall Dirk sort of walked onto this disc, and it plummets towards the ground. He going, let's go. And he has to jump off. In this one, and this sets the tone, little clouds come out and try to blow you off the sides of the disc. And you sort of got to move your joystick in the opposite direction to keep Dirk on.
Yes.
And eventually the disc will come to a landing, then a second landing, and you have to jump off. You have to just run your guy over and hit the jump button and jump off and get to the landing. So it's pretty similar to the arcade.
It's definitely similar enough that you know exactly what they're trying to portray with the scene. You know from the arcade that this was, the same scene.
And one nice touch in this is that after Dirk jumps onto the landing, it shows the disc going off down into the tube, which is cool.
Very nice touch.
You know, that's something that was you didn't see a lot of that sort of thing back in the day. That made it a little more cinematic. So they tried to capture that. I think that level they did a pretty good job. And that level was okay. There's the funny thing about this is there's way more gameplay in this and traditional gameplay than there is in the arcade version,
which had none.
That's true. The next level, the Skull Hallway. Now, this is a favorite of mine in the arcade machine. On the arcade version, you're walking down a hall, and a big skeletal hand comes out and tries to grab you, and Dirk smashes with his sword. He jumps forward. Some little barking skulls come out of his feet. He jumps forward again. Some ooze comes out. There's another hand, and he runs in this room and kills some specters, and that's it. This version's kind of elaborate, actually, isn't it, Brent?
Yeah, it is. It's a really good scene.
So in this, the hand comes out.
I couldn't get past it.
The skeletons come out. You also have slime that comes out, and bats come out of one of them as well. So there's a combination of sword and moving in this. And again, this one is more like the arcade because you're sort of moving as you go through this 3D hallway. You're sort of moving backwards into the plane. Yeah. And so it's that they actually kind of capture some of the arcade feel there. I thought they did a pretty decent job.
I think this is. I mean, it's a hard room. Something to mention is you have 5 lives, and if you fail a room twice, it automatically advances you,
which helps. Yeah, because
this room I couldn't get past without.
This room is hard.
This room has probably 13 or 14 inputs to get past it, and it is inputs like the arcade. Yeah. You just hit. You don't just
This room is like that. Yes. They're not all like that.
And it has signals. It has little asterisks, much like Esches, that flash on the screen to tell you what you kind of need to do. They're very, very subtle, but they are there, so it does give you some kind of idea of what to do.
They're much more subtle than the arcade. Yes. But I mean, it's neat that they put them in.
Yes, absolutely.
So once you clear that, you go into the weapons room. Now in the arcade, this is an interesting room where Dirk walks in. Almost called him Ash, and Ash is not even the guy's name. But Dirk walks in, and weapons come to life and come down and attack him from above. And eventually, even an anvil comes out, he has to sidestep. And then he dips his sword in this goop and whacks the statue that comes to life. Right?
Yes.
This, again, is a more elaborate version of that room. You get attacked by swords, the anvil. You also get attacked by shields.
Yep.
There's a lot of stuff. The spears. Spears are tough, too. This room, I got killed a lot, too.
Yeah, this was another one. If you memorize the sequence, you can do it pretty much every time. Again, this is like the arcade where it's more inputs, timed inputs, as opposed to actual gameplay. Unlike the arcade, the camera, and this is the same with all the rooms, the camera's static. Yeah. And the action takes place in the scene.
Which it had, unlike in the arcade where the camera switches view to the point of view of the weapon and stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything.
This works, doesn't it? I mean, it works.
And it looks good.
Yeah.
You know what the things are. You understand that things come to life and you have to dodge the head falling off the statue. It all makes sense.
Yeah, I like that. The anvil's still involved, the whole 9 yards. Again, a room where they've taken the initial concept and fleshed it out.
Yeah, again, and it has something like 14, 15 inputs to get past it.
Okay, so now we're getting into the bizarre here. Now let's talk about the burning ropes. All right, because I sort of went over, but now this is a whole different. This is a wacky. This is more unlike the arcade than any. I mean, it's like the arcade, but it's different. In the arcade, this version is where you swing across these ropes that are on fire, right? And you there's like 5 of them, and you jump over. This is a much more elaborate room.
Yes,
you have to swing across and occasionally jump to a pedestal in the middle.
Yes, and ride the pedestal.
There are 3 levels. So once you get past the first level, they're all on one screen. Fire that's at the bottom of the screen rises up under you, right? Mm-hmm. So then you've got to go off the second screen. Again, fire rises up. So it's actually kind of neat the way they did it. I thought the way it's rendered was pretty good. I kind of dug it, but it's different in the arcade because it's a lot longer. But I mean, I thought it was pretty fun.
This is a scene I could get past, so it wasn't that bad.
Right.
But it did let you do more with it than just bink, 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 bink. So, I thought it was interesting.
I thought it was good. Now, the ramp room. Dirk has to jump from ramp to ramp before the ramps go away.
Yeah,
I didn't like this room either, and this is pretty much the end of the line for me. I didn't get.
I got pissed at this. This wasn't that bad.
And you got your Giddy Goons in there.
Yeah.
Now the Giddy Goons in the arcade aren't involved in a ramp room. They're in a staircase, and they're just little hopping idiots with knives. Which I guess are still sort of that. But this room I thought was pretty tough. Let's talk about the tentacle room. All right.
This was the end.
In the arcade, this is a pretty tough room in the arcade, actually. I always thought you have to basically, these tentacles are coming out of the ceiling, and you have to move around, try not to get grabbed. You have to occasionally you have to chop them. Dirk and this has to evade or kill the things that come up in the room. And the funny thing about the tentacles in the COLECO ADAM version is if they come all the way up, you got to kill them. Sometimes they'll just pop up, and you have to avoid them,
dodge them.
So you really sort of have to know when. It's a lot like the arcade. You almost have to memorize when they're coming up, because I think they're on a set pattern.
They are.
I didn't get this far. This is the end of the line for old me.
Yeah, this is the room I failed at, and while the game is entertaining, I didn't enjoy it enough to keep grinding at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this room has, I watched a playthrough, it looks like it has about 15 inputs. And again, this is more like the arcade where you hit time the inputs at the right time.
Right. So then you are hit with another disc, another falling disc room, which is just, in the arcade you have a couple of those. You might have 3 or 4 of them, to be honest with you. Then you've got the old electric knight in the chess room. Now this is a whole different kettle of fish. I didn't get this far. I had to watch someone do this level. It didn't look as hard as the arcade one. Of course, the arcade, when you memorize the pattern, you're in good shape. This one, the knight, when he strikes the ground, lightning sort of shoots in a straight line out from him, either left or right or up or down. And you've got to basically go to a square that's not lit up, that you can avoid that, and get close enough to start whacking him. And when you hit him enough times, he'll die, and then you can skip out of the room, because at that point, the room starts going away. Basically, you have to run. I like the fact that they added that, just like the fire, they added an element of danger even after
to push you forward. Yeah,
and I thought this room looked good as well. I thought there was no problem with this one.
Yep, I agree.
Now, lastly, Slay the Dragon, Singe. Now, this is a pretty impressive graphic here. I thought.
Yes,
Singe looks awesome. They did a good job. Now, Daphne. They did not render her with all her beauty that she has. She's much lamer looking. And Dirk's the same way. They're almost enhanced stick figures. But Singe looks great.
Yeah.
And this one, you have to basically avoid Singe's fire. And as you go up, there's a sword at the top of the screen you've got to go fetch. And there's it's up sort of like a twisty path up a hill.
Yeah.
And between you and the sword, there's some I guess some shrubs or something. Yeah. And Singe is shooting fire at you, and you have to basically stand in front of these brambles, and he'll light them up if you move. And then once they burn away, you can go up and get the sword. Then you can go up, jump on him, stab him with the sword, and then, which I like, as his head flops over onto the dirt, his tail pops up. You can jump off that and get up to Daphne, which is cool. Now, there's really no ending to this. It just sort of stops. Yeah, there's no. That's a misstep. I thought I'd like to see a little bit more there. And I will say, Singe, it doesn't look like you've killed him. It just looks like he's hurt.
He opens his eye at the end, even.
Yeah. So I think that's cool. That you didn't kill him off, because one sword to the gut, that's not going to kill nobody. He's Singe. He's a stud. The funny thing about this game is that, much like a lot of COLECO games, good luck finding out who actually did the programming on it. I had no luck, obviously. I don't think really you can look at the Don Bluth and those guys. I mean, obviously they were responsible for the arcade machine, but they really had their art.
No.
With the exception of Singe,
their design was mimicked.
Their art wasn't really represented too well, in the thing. Of course, it's sort of irrelevant, I guess. I suppose. This, I couldn't find any reviews on this except for just personal reviews of it. I did find it on eBay. You can get it I found 2 copies, one $60 and one $70 copy, and I think these were both cards. I don't think I think that maybe one was a cassette. Now think about it. But this is one of those games that is you've got the beautiful Dragon Slayer art on the box, on the case. That's pretty much the extent of it. But I was actually Here, I'm just going to tell you the way I would have thought about this when it came out in '84. This would have blown me away. This is probably one of the most elaborate COLECO. If this came out in a ColecoVision, it would really blow you away. It's an elaborate cartridge. I mean, it doesn't sound like much today, but I mean, this was a time where you didn't see this kind of gameplay. I mean, it was really, and what you basically got is like seven or eight mini games mini screens. I
don't agree with that.
Well, I mean, they're all different. You can't deny that.
I mean, I think this was a pretty good package. It definitely took from the Dragon's Lair source material and said, how good can we make this? And they made it pretty good.
Yeah.
It's short. I think it needs at least 3 more scenes to be considered a full game.
I don't think they could have stuck anything else on there.
Well, I mean, the size constraint, that's very possible. But it's unfortunate that they weren't able to do a little bit more.
I was impressed. I
was super impressed.
I was way more impressed than you because this really blew my mind. And like I said, I knew the existence of this game, but when I got to sit down and fiddle with it, they did a remarkable job of capturing the feel of Dragon's Lair, to me. I thought they did good, and I think it was a good. If I'd bought this, having played Dragon's Lair, I would feel like that I was getting a fun representation of the game that at that time there was no possibility of porting to the home.
Yeah, I think as long as they didn't try to sell it as a home port. I mean, this was Dragon's Lair for the Atom. It wasn't a home port of Dragon's Lair. Would you at least agree with that?
It was. They tried to do the best they could,
and I think they did decent with the source material.
I think it was a very.
I think it was admirable.
I think it was a noble try, and I think it's a fun game.
It's okay.
It's not. I mean, listen, it's the most fun game you're gonna put in a COLECO, no, or even on the Atom. But I think it's a fun game, and if you're in the mood to play Dragon's Lair, I think it's fun. It's kind of neat that they elaborated on some of the levels and made them flushed them out a little bit. I think I like that too.
I agree.
So I dug it. I think Brent sort of dug it too. So
I did. I thought it was okay.
Moving on. Now, Brent, I got to tell you, the item you picked this week, I'd never heard of.
I hadn't either.
So what's the scoop?
I went with Alcazar, the Forgotten Fortress.
Ooh, forgotten.
Yes.
It was forgotten.
This was a game that actually came out on the COLECO and the COLECO Atom. And a few games did this.
Yeah, quite a few.
And they had enhanced features. Some of them had better graphics. Some of them had better sound. This being an adventure game, if you played on the COLECO, you turn off your COLECO, that's it. You have to start over every single time. On the Atom, the feature they added was the ability to save your game. Because depending on what difficulty you play this on, you could play this game for a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
So what is Alcazar? This is a game very similar to The Legend of Zelda for the Nintendo Entertainment System, where it is a grid-based map game where you go from room to room and the whole screen changes to your new position and you take on that room. As you go through it, you pick up items, there are monsters, there are hazards in the rooms themselves. So it has a very Zelda-y feel. This actually released it would have been in development the same time. So they didn't look at The Legend of Zelda and said, we're going to copy that.
It's funny because I didn't get the Zelda feel at all.
You're crazy.
I didn't think it was. I didn't remind me of Zelda at all.
It is exactly like a Zelda dungeon.
Now, I thought it was. I don't like Zelda that much, and I like this a lot.
Well, you trust me. You're the only one that doesn't think it's anything like Zelda because it is it's not a carbon copy because they were developed at the same time, but the games have similar feels. So let's take a step back and look at the Alcazar story. You are attempting to get to Alcazar's castle to claim the throne, because apparently the throne has been abandoned. And to do this, it takes you start on an overworld map that has 20 or so castles on it.
Yeah, tons.
And
bridges and all kinds of stuff.
You see pathways going between all the castles. So you have to go to a castle, fight your way through it, which will put you at an exit point to go to the next castle. It's a very, very good way to do levels. And this game has 4 difficulty levels, and depending on the difficulty levels is how much damage you can take, how many lives you start with, but most importantly, it dictates what items are actually in the game. So if you play this on difficulty 1 or 2, you can't actually see all the game.
Really?
All the game is not in there.
Really?
Yes.
Because I played on 1 every time.
Yes. Yeah. If you play on 1 or 2, there are items missing. That makes it so you cannot cross the lake. You cannot cross the ravines. There are dungeon items. There are dungeon items that you can't get unless you play on the higher difficulty levels. And we'll go over some of those later.
That's crazy. No, I didn't know that.
So if you are going to play this, just start on difficulty 3, because at least then you can see all the game. And difficulty 4 is just harder difficulty 3. So there's no need to go to it, and just unless you just want a challenge. So in this game, your controls are up, down, left, right, and you fight in real time versus the baddies that are there. And to fight, you have to pick up items like guns or water or oil, and you use those to defeat the enemies that are on the screen.
Is there a backstory to this? In terms of, I don't understand the fact that you're picking up guns. That was a lot.
I'll get over my complaints here in a bit, but I'm going to. We're going to all stay positive right now. So you have to go to Alcazar's castle, going through all these little castles to reclaim the throne, to take back the crown. And this game has some of the best at the time monster interactions of any game out there. And let me explain what I mean by that. When you go, your main weapon is a gun, and your gun holds like 6 or 8 shots. I can't remember offhand. I think it's 8.
Yeah.
And you can shoot any enemy in the game. And enemies are things like genies, tigers, griffins. There are human guards, tarantulas, and giant flies.
The giant flies are my favorite.
And there's also like a slime.
Yeah,
what is a slime creature?
Looking, yeah.
And all the enemies take a different amount of bullets to defeat. And supplies are limited, especially when you play on the harder difficulty levels. You might only get 3 or 4 clips of guns in the entire thing. So you can't just shoot everything. There's too many enemies.
I shot everything.
On level 1, you can.
I did.
But what's really cool about this game is the other items you pick up, the enemies are weak to. For example, if you have the bleach, which is a poison you can pick up, you can either shoot the little slimes 5 times to destroy them, or you can hit them with 1 bleach and they're dead. So it makes it easier to take out the enemies. Like the genies, if you throw water on them or use a magical ring, you'll kill them in 1 shot. Otherwise, they're tough, because they're really fast and it takes 6 bullets. It's got almost a whole gun's worth of bullets. The way that plays off each other is so unique. For an enemy to have weaknesses versus items that you can pick up in the game, it really adds to the fun. Now, if you don't play on the higher difficulties, you don't really get to see that. But having limited inventory space, because you can only hold 4 items, and having enemies with certain weaknesses makes the game exciting. It is the way to play. Other things you can get in the game are rafts, which will allow you to cross the large lake in the middle, and you can cut off a ton of map if you do it that way.
I never even saw one of those.
You can get that's because you played on the lower difficulty levels. You can get the rope, which allows you to go through the chasm. It also allows you to take down some of the enemies easier. Everything kind of intertwines in this race to get to the castle. Now, here's what makes the game incredible. I mean, right now, this is a good game. Everything I'm describing, it's a good, fun game, because the way they do it is really solid. What makes this game incredible is it's different every single time. It is all procedural. So when you turn on the game, you're going to get a map layout, or the inside of the castle layouts are always different items, different enemies. The colors of the castles on the main map dictate what kind of castle it is. Those are always different. Every map has 2 floors, so the staircase in the each castle is different. Incredible that they went into so much detail and so much depth to get this game to where it is. And it feels like an adventure. I played this game over and over and over, and I beat it several times on multiple difficulty levels.
Really?
Oh, yes. Had a great time. The controls are a little bit weird because you have to hold...
The shooting controls are weird.
Correct, the attacks. You have to hold the button and then hit in one of the cardinal directions to use your projectile or to use your item to hit the bad guy. So that's a little awkward. I'd rather just be able to do it kind of on the run, but I guess that's a limitation of the joystick more than anything else. Some other things about this game that I thought were really unique were they had pits, and the pits were really annoying at first because you just go through a door and you fall down a pit and you die. Well, if you pay attention, there are actually clues to what doors lead to pits. The torches won't be lit on doors that lead to pits.
Huh.
Another thing.
That's pretty good. I didn't notice that.
There are audio cues for what monsters are in the next room.
That I didn't know.
Buzzing of flies, growling of some of the monsters. And you can actually shoot them from the other room through the doorway to the screen you haven't even been in.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
There are magic carpets that sometimes when you step on a magic carpet, it will zoom you to another castle or another place in the castle. You can even lure the enemies onto the carpets or into pits, and they'll go away. So you can get through. Since there are so many limited supplies on the harder difficulties, you have to kind of do this to stop things from chasing you, because they will chase you from room to room, which is also something that is just amazing.
They'll also wander in. If I guess they hear you, they'll come in like the flies. He would come in all the time when I was nearby. He would come in. And
there's another awesome dynamic is the fly is the loudest enemy in the game. So if the fly is next to you in a room, and on the other side of the room is a tiger, which will normally snarl. Or it's not the tiger, it's a griffin, I think, that will snarl, and you can hear that. The fly's louder, so you won't know there's a griffin in the other room.
Yeah.
That kind of dynamic, that kind of build on itself is just amazing for a game of this era. It's amazing, period.
Yeah.
Because this does gameplay in a way that even games today don't do it. And it is what makes this game so memorable and so fun. Activision is the people who put this together, and good on them for doing it. Now, here's the kicker. Who do you think published this game?
All right.
Telegames, the same publishers as Crazy 8's Miniature Golf.
Oh, Lord.
So, good on them for that, because this is a game that would have died on the vine otherwise, because Telegames picked up a ton of these games for these dying systems and pushed them out when no one else would. This was released in 80. It says 85, but it was actually released in 86. Well past the lifespan of the COLECO, and well past the lifespan of the Adam.
I've got to say that this game came out of nowhere. I never heard of it, and it's great. You didn't touch on some stuff that I really like, and I'm going to touch on.
Okay, go for it.
Auto mapping.
Yeah.
Okay. This little feature goes a long way, and I'm putting multiple floor, multiple level auto mapping.
Yep.
Yes, that's what I want. I don't have to go wander around like an idiot. In this place, a lot of the rooms look the same. And so you need that. It helps out a tremendous amount. Let's talk inventory. This game has an inventory system.
Yep.
Again, a remarkable achievement.
Yes.
And it works. It's simple and it works. The gun is goofy. I mean, I
wish it would have been a bow.
But I mean, the thing is, it works.
Yeah.
It works fine. It's a weapon. There's enough arcadey action in it to make you feel. It's almost. to me, it reminded me of what it reminded me of more was like a venture or something where you go room to room and you fight bad guys. But this takes that concept way past that. The stuff you pick up's awesome. The pits, you will fall in the bottomless pit. You just when you're going through so quick.
That if you watch the torches,
I didn't even know about that, but that's cool.
Yeah.
Your guy will go through it if he doesn't need a gun. If he has a space, he'll just get the bullets, which I like.
Yep.
There's a lot of it. I mean, they really thought of a lot of stuff when they put this together. The sound in this is outstanding.
Did you save anyone from the?
I did.
Yeah. You get keys from guards that unlock doors, and when you save a person, you get an extra life.
Yeah.
Much goodness in this game.
There's a ton of stuff in here. This is the kind of game if you're going to play this type of game, this is what I like.
Yeah.
Like real-time arcade-style combat combined with a dungeon crawl mapping system that I could get behind. The overland map, you get a good hard look at what you've got in front of you, and there's a lot of stuff there to deal with. It's cool.
Yep.
You know what you're doing instantly. Like, this is way better than, like, the Dungeons & Dragons games on television. This is, like, a step ahead of most games from this era. How this game was around for so long that I never heard of it, I can't believe. The sound, like I said, the sound effects of the monsters and stuff, outstanding.
Yeah.
The graphics look good. I mean, it does look Zelda-y. But I mean, it looks good. The doors are ornate. They've got weird, the walls.
The bones and
sometimes
stuff.
you go to the dungeon you go to are different colors.
Yeah, and the different colored dungeons have different enemies types in them, different loot in them. Some guns will have more or less guns, or like one color of the castle is the only color that will have the rope. So when you're playing on the higher difficulty levels and the rope's a big shortcut or something, you go to that, you find the rope, and then take it to your shortcut.
I can't wait to try that.
It's so awesome.
Yeah. And it's fair. That's something else. It feels like a fair game to let you live and die on your own. The fact that you can have a train after you, just like EQ.
Yep.
You'll have 4 or 5 monsters tailing you, and you got to fight. And something else I like this. Like at any point you can just leave.
Yeah.
You just leave them. You can leave the dungeon.
Yeah. They won't follow you from castle to castle, but from room to room, they will on you. And stuff like genies are fast.
Yeah.
The tigers, the griffins are fast.
One technique you have to develop in this is you have to aim. You have to basically point to where you're going to shoot and hit the button to shoot. So what you have to do is, if you come upon something, let's say you come on like a slime, doesn't make any sound, you shoot it real quick and then you back off. And then you shoot it real quick and you back off. And you might go to the next room and he'll follow you. You shoot him again and back off. And that gives you just enough space to kill these things when they're slow. The slime's not that quick. When you get a faster enemy, you might run 5. I'd run through the whole dungeon trying to kill these things.
Yeah.
Or
leave. Yeah.
Or hope that you come across some bullets. Because your gun's empty. You're hoping you can come up with something, Like I said, there's locked gates in there with the keys. It's a total package.
It is.
I give this one a ringing endorsement.
Yes.
This is a must-play.
Yeah.
Must-play right there.
And you can play this on the COLECO emulator or the COLECO Adam. Like I said,
now the save doesn't matter.
In modern time, there is no difference. But the back in the day, the COLECO version or the Adam version came on a 5 1/4 floppy, so you could actually save your progress and come back to it later.
Yeah, you'd want to saving a game would help.
Well, the game is not huge. Especially if you play on the beginning levels, you can get through the entire game in about 15 minutes. On the harder levels, where you have to be a lot more meticulous about what items you take, what castles you go to, what shortcuts you take, it would stretch out to a longer game, 40, in the 45 minute range.
It's amazing to me that this game is something that's not heralded.
It should be.
Did you find reviews on this thing?
There was one review, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that this came out in '86.
Yeah, that's well after the prime of the COLECO Adam. Yeah,
and the people who reviewed it was Ahoy, and they said that I
hadn't heard about them for a while.
They said it had a beautiful theme song, which I guess I didn't think it was that great. And they said that the action was exciting and it was mentally stimulating to use the special weapons on the different enemies.
Yeah.
But they said that the graphics were lacking. And in in '86, I would agree.
But I mean, the graphics in this are very passable.
Oh, for the
'86,
for the COLECO, it's mind blowing.
Yeah, it's really good. The graphics I didn't have any problem. The monsters look good. I thought the monsters looked great.
Well, I think that everything.
We should mention that the skeletons you find on the floor.
Yeah,
I think that's nice too.
Yeah,
nice little flourishes that are in there.
But I will have to agree, for '86, I mean, there was a lot of good stuff.
Well, I know
that's way deep into the system.
Well, I still think this is a big win.
Huge win.
A big win.
You gotta go play this.
You got lucky on this one, dude.
This was great. I enjoyed it tremendously.
Your overall thoughts on the Adam after a week of fooling with it? Did you actually get into the messing around?
Oh no, I didn't get into programming on the basic or anything. As a platform itself, I don't think it was anything that I'm going to go back to. I don't remember it from my childhood because I never had one, of course.
Yeah, that was way out of our price range.
But I can see its place.
The sad thing is the Adam is not included in a lot of emulation packages.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate. Like I had to go and hunt this stuff down.
Yes,
because my highly touted emulation packages did not include Adam as an emulated item. And I think they'll run off the same emulator, so it's a matter of just getting it wrong. But Dragon's Lair is a unique novelty. I'd go out of your way to have a look at. Alcazar would go out of your way to play. And the good thing about this one is you can play this on the ColecoVision version, exactly the same except for the save.
Yeah.
So, all right. The Adam in our rearview mirror. Now it's time to tinker with what?
The wheel.
Okay. It's time for me to
the wheel. No.
What?
You can tell the people what we added to the wheel.
We added, what did we add? Oh, we added Button Mashers this week. Brent's favorite.
A game that will be some kind of button masher type game. Something where you're really going at the buttons.
All right. I am now a wheel, by the way.
Yeah.
All right. Don't knock over the world. All right. Here we go. We had no game reviews this week, by the way. I should probably mention that.
Oh my goodness.
Did it happen? Has the miracle happened?
That is the Sega Saturn, ladies and gentlemen.
This piece predates Brent on the wheel. It's been there since. It does. It's literally in our logo. It's been there that long. Yeah. We took those initial pictures. Well, that's interesting. The Saturn, of course, was cracked wide open a couple years ago, and I
held on, man.
I cracked the heck out of mine, and I happen to have a pretty decent library of Saturn games. I've bought a bunch of Saturn games as well. So, and we've actually talked quite a bit about the Saturn here recently. So that should be a good time.
Should be a fun show.
Do you have any thoughts on what you might try?
Well, I mean, X-Men vs. Street Fighter would have been the game I would have chose, but since I did that for a previous episode on our fighting game episode. I'm going to dig deep and try to find something special. Something special.
Very good. So, do you want to say hi to all the people in the chat room today? Join us live.
It was a slow day in chat land. We had Sox McCoy, Duncan Styles came by, Picard, and Outmold.
All right. Hey, just a couple shout-outs real quick. Join us. We're going to be, if you're watching this live, we'll be recording double Amigo and ZX Spectrum action later on today. So if you're watching this live, come on down and join us. Otherwise, catch those when they get released on YouTube. Since it's along the same genre that me and Brent often cover, me and Luke, my son, did a full playthrough this week of Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder, which we covered on this show.
Yep, and that's up on the channel
right now. So if you want to watch me and my 9-year-old son go through it, and he jumps around like a maniac, as you can imagine. But we had a good time. We have recently rigged up the arcade machine here in the old ARG studio to be fully ready to go with recording video games and videos. So we'll be probably releasing a lot of stuff that we play on the arcade machine. It'll be a lot of fun, won't it?
And I've also the Amigo Studio Subterranean is almost online, which will be in my basement for me to do a few reviews of my own.
Lord knows what'll happen down there.
That's crazy times.
So anyway, thanks for joining us this week. Again, next week, the highly anticipated Sega Saturn. It finally happened. Hell froze over. So, thanks for joining us. And until next week,
Alcazar!
choose. Whatever heartbeat.